Welcome back, everyone. We are already ready with our next run, racing onto the scene. We have Viper running driver. You are the wheelman. That's right. Viper is the wheelman. Take it away, wheelman.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so this is Driver You Are the Wheelman, or just Driver if you want to call it that, Driver 1. It's got plenty of little nicknames. So you're in for a bit of a treat today. So there's 3 versions of this game. Don't worry, there's not much difference, but we're going to be playing the Japanese version. And reason why, it's marathon friendly, and also has a few little slight twists. First thing I'm just going to mention straight off the bat, there is a loading screen here that is different than the other ones. The other 2 versions of the game use the outline and the map of San Francisco and Miami and everything of America basically behind it. But if we're ready on time, we'll get right into it and I'll try and explain as we go. The story is a bit all over the place, but I'll try and do my best. Anyway, ready on time, we'll get going. 3, 2, 1, go. Right, so Japanese version. First, like I said, first thing is that the fact that everything's Japanese, obviously. So all text, all speech, from police speech to cutscenes and everything in between, is all in Japanese. However, all on text screen is all in English, so you can still pick up a little bit of what you have to do. So, first things first, Japanese version allows you this neat little thing here, which is this. So what you can do is you can actually skip the interview in the Japanese release by wrecking the car. This still allows you to progress. Yeah, turns out the Japanese got one up on everybody. Because of the fact that they were able to literally just jump to the first mission of the game. So all of us who played the PAL or the North American versions of the game, we we got a bit, glanced over, we'll call it. And the Japanese got it way easier. So a few things I'm going to mention. So the Japanese version is by far the easiest version of the game. Now, as I said, all on-screen text is English, so at least you'll be able to see what we're supposed to do, like I said, objective-wise. But basically, you play as John Tanner. He's an undercover cop. Works for New York Police Department, I think, for a guy called Mackenzie, Captain Mackenzie. And they're looking for some ex-racing boy who apparently is what Tanner is, according to what they've said. He's an ex-racer, and they mentioned that a guy called Rufus is in the picture regarding a bunch of gangs that are going on within America. So first things first is we need to get the attention of Rufus. So by doing what we're doing first bit, which is we are going to do a bank job, which is going to get us hopefully within the criminal underworld. Now, 2 quick things to mention. Firstly, the Japanese game has it a lot easier because the time limits are a lot longer. Some are 5, some are 10 seconds longer. This helps in some missions later on, which you'll see. Second thing is this mission we have to wait till the 15-second mark until we can actually do anything like this, so we can actually get to the lockup or the safe house, call it whatever you wish. Next thing is the fact that you'll see that it says criminal at the top underneath our damage bar. In the other releases of the game, this is felony, but the Japanese wanted to be different, so they called it criminal, which I suppose is one way of identifying what the hell's going on. The other thing is what I'm doing right now, which is we're playing in first person, and we're looking to the side a lot. Now, the reason for this is the original Driver game, and Driver 2, no doubt. Driver 2 had a much bigger problem performance-wise. And to cut a long story short, by looking to the side like this, we're also driving in these certain spots because we can look sideways and not get hit. If there's a police car coming towards us, we can easily keep driving, he won't hit us. But if he's driving with us, like now, he shouldn't hit us. But if he drives with us, so like he's in the same lane going the same direction, he can hit us. So that's just something to be aware of. Next thing is the main RNG factor in this game is the police spawns. So I may get a cop at the end, I might not. If I do, I have to wreck him. It's as simple as that. Some missions you can't afford to wreck the cops, unfortunately. I do think we're going to get one at the end here, which we did. That was kind of unlucky. Never mind. He will, luckily, let us destroy him. The other thing is, as well, is the cops are a bit weaker. There we go. So they're going to go into that there, and that's going to be the end of that first mission. And the other thing is as well is that when you're looking at a wall, there's obviously nothing behind it. And as such, we're going to be trying to like face the wall and like look in the direction that is spawned the least amount to keep the frame rate going as consistent as possible. Now, the way that the missions are structured in this game are via this, the answering machine, and we pick certain missions as we go. And the reason why we do that is because these missions prove the fastest and the least amount of time wasted, and in some cases are the easiest missions. Not all of them are. So in Miami, there's not too many missions that are difficult. One of the hardest missions in Miami we are going to be doing on this run. The chase missions are another one as well. So the chase missions are all completely RNG. They're all completely random. And depending on how bad them chase sequences can be for us will depend on like what the final time is going to be. So we need to be very, very cautious. For the most part, a lot of the missions are make sure you get from one end to the other without getting wrecked and without having police in your way. We got exceedingly lucky there for Tico's rides. That's good. So you may be wondering where the story is going. So we've done that bank job. We've got put in contact with a guy called Tico, and according to him, he needs to visit a guy with a bad memory. So essentially, he needs to make a hit on someone. The reason how I know it's a hit is because, well, first of all, him saying I need to go and see a guy with a bad memory. Basically, we need to straighten him out, or Tico does. And also, not only that, is the mission that follows this is called the cleanup. So I guess that would also prove it. So the fun fact is the estimate for this is about 1 hour and 25 minutes, but Miami itself takes 22 to 25 minutes, depending on how good or bad it goes. If it goes bad, then it can take anywhere from like 35 to 45 minutes. Now, for the sake of this cop here, I'm actually going to wreck him. Because first of all, I don't want a cop on my tail getting to the end of this mission. Secondly, I'd rather not have him chase me all the way to the end, so it still allows me to not have a cop at the end. As I said, the cops are completely random here, so we shouldn't have. So that's one of the main things. As I said, the cops are the main one. The other thing is to point out is that we also want to make sure the car is, we do a handbrake turn, make sure the car is closest to the house as we can get it. So that Tico, and I'll call him Nico then, Tico can get to the end of it like that, and they can get back in the car. So the reason why the Japanese version is slower than the North American release is because the North American release has less time for missions, meaning that you actually gain time in the North American release due to there being less time to do missions. The PAL version is by far the hardest, so anyone, myself included, that was unfortunate to play the PAL release of Driver, you got the hardest version of anybody, because all the missions were as short as they could for time, but also they had ridiculously hard police sometimes. So this is the next mission, so we have to go and pick up a car. So it turns out, you may have just heard that there were gunshots in that last mission. That's because Tico has killed someone. Don't know who. Unknown as to who it is. Presumably he should have kept his mouth shut about the gang business and didn't. So Tico has gone in and shot him. The cleanup, as you might imagine, we now need to get rid of the body. Now, as I said, the thing is with Driver, it's not a blood and gore violent game. It's not like Grand Theft Auto. But here's the fun one. So back in the late 90s, early 2000s, Reflections, or Infogrames I think it was, and Rockstar had a bit of a, I'll call it like a little mini feud. So in 1999 this released, obviously Grand Theft Auto had already released, I believe it was 2 years earlier, with Grand Theft Auto 2 also releasing around the same year or a year apart, before Driver released. But Grand Theft Auto was taken from a 3D perspective. As everybody knows, it was not 3D perspective. It took on a 3D perspective. But originally, the games were top-down games, so you used to have like a bird's-eye view of the character. You'd be looking down, and you get to see all the cars moving around, and all the characters moving around, and obviously you control characters, and you still shoot people, and da 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 da. But obviously, it was all a top-down perspective. But when Driver released, Driver went, no, we're not doing that. Driver was mainly a case of the violence would be in the cutscenes more than anything else. You wouldn't actually shoot anybody. It did have a bit of a violent storyline, but you didn't have anything to do with, you know, killing people like you would in Grand Theft Auto. But what it did do is it managed to let you explore 4 different cities in a 3D based environment, and as such got one up over Grand Theft Auto. Things got worse for Grand Theft Auto versus Driver because Driver managed to do Driver 2 in 2000. Now unfortunately, Driver 2 on the PS1, as everybody probably knows or is very well aware, was one of the worst, I wouldn't say the all-time worst performing, but one of the worst performing driving games on the PlayStation 1. It was known for its abysmal frame rate. The story, I believe, wasn't too great either, but for the most part, it was a case of, well, you know, the frame rate sucking a lot. So because of that, that's the reason why. Also, this cop didn't want to get off my tail, which is nice of him. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to destroy him, and then we're going to reverse into there. There we go. So obviously, because I'm not looking at anything, that gives the most amount of frame rate and allows us to move forward. But as I was saying, so with Driver and Grand Theft Auto, they had a little feud in the late 90s, early 2000s. And as a result, you ended up having, well, the Rockstar versus Infogrames war, I guess. Yeah, I say war, it was, like I said, it was more of a little friendly feud, friendly rivalry. Driver got 2 up over Grand Theft Auto, then Grand Theft Auto went 3D. Unfortunately, for people that do remember, or for those that were unlucky to remember, that Driver did eventually hit back at GTA, but by the time it did that, it was too late. Grand Theft Auto had come into its own and had already got 2 games up. In fact, here's the fun one. So Grand Theft Auto released first in 1997, I believe it was. 96, 97, around about there. Got 2 games out, then Driver released 2 games, which topped Grand Theft Auto. And for a year or two, say that, bar 2001, when Grand Theft Auto 3 released, Driver was the king of games, racing games at the time. It did 1 over on Grand Theft Auto. It was in a 3D environment. That was the whole thing. It was the fact that it was in a 3D environment. It wasn't a top-down perspective. You could actually see cars, and there was quite a fair few of them on screen. Not hundreds of cars, but there was a fair few of them. Obviously, you can tell now that the loading is a bit bad for it, but it's not that bad. But then, obviously, as I said, Grand Theft Auto hit back. It released Grand Theft Auto 3 in 2001 and Vice City in 2002. Driver still hadn't released a 3rd game in the series. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar. Driver Gate was a thing where Driver 3 was released early to game magazines, and the game magazines were paid off to give them exceedingly high reviews so that it could supposedly outperform Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, which was on the horizon at the time. Obviously, Rockstar won that one because, well, yeah, they just did. They won everything. And as since, Driver got left in the shade and has not been able to stand on its own 2 feet since then. Now, obviously, Grand Theft Auto is a very popular series. Driver hasn't had a game in its series since 2011, at least a full proper game anyway. There have been other games in the series. For those that are aware, Driver 1, 2, 3. Parallel Lines came out in 2006, which was a complete clear GTA knockoff. And then the next proper Driver game we got after that, as in like full Driver game, was Driver San Francisco. And that was the last time we had a full Driver game. And I say full Driver game, there was other Driver games that released, in particular LA Undercover for the mobile phones. Not only did we have LA Undercover, but we also had other ones too. So I'm going to play this mission a bit smart here. Nice. So what you need to do in this one is you need to chase the guy down and let him get in the car. Nice and easy. Also, apparently, Jean-Paul can just, you know, blitz through cars like you do, as you do. But yeah, it's not too bad, realistically. And like I said, Driver won the war overall between themselves and the Driver games. Driver went a bit down the toilet. There was even a supposedly revival of Driver in the form of Driver Speedboat Paradise, which I can tell you right now is an absolute shambles and an absolute travesty that it's even considered a Driver game. Driver it doesn't mean boats, it means cars. More or less. It means police chases. It doesn't really mean gunfights or anything like that. That was what San Francisco did differently. San Francisco was about, obviously, people may know the story of Driver San Francisco, but it was to do with the fact that he was in a coma and stuff like that. And the whole guns mechanic that disappeared. There was nothing else. There was no, oh yeah, let's make it like a GTA game. And the thing is, as well, San Francisco, they had this shift mechanic. The fun fact about the shift mechanic is that, well, it was never used in any other game apart from that one. And the fact, in any racing game at least. And it was a bit of a criminal thing that happened. Also, you may be wondering why we're letting the police wreck themselves. It's because it gives us more time to get ahead and not have to worry so much. So I'm going to quickly lose him. Should be able to. Yes, I can. There we go. Very nice. And then we get into here. Nice. All good stuff. So we've got out of that one. That's bust out Jean Paul done. But yeah, as I was saying, with Driver, it like I said, it had the Driver Speedboat Paradise game, which I believe was a mobile game. Still yet to find an emulator that runs it, so it can be speedrun. The problem is it has microtransactions and that sort of stuff. So running that would just be a nightmare, to be honest. Recently, though, there has been discoveries within the Driver community. Most notably, that someone has finally managed to get the iOS port of Driver 1. Because in 2010, I think it might have been a bit sooner than that, maybe 2008 or 9 perhaps. But I think it was Gameloft, which was known for making the now famous Asphalt series, the mobile racer. Didn't start like that though. And they ended up making a fair few games and things like that. But yeah, just overall, it's been an interesting experience. But yeah, they made Driver 1 for iOS back in 2009, 2010, and recently emulation has allowed it to actually be playable. Now, obviously, there's a bit of trickery involved, something that I myself hasn't got around to doing yet. But hopefully I'll be able to actually learn that version and submit it for an event, which would be nice. And it would be a heck of a laugh too. Now, whilst on the topic of Driver and the series' history, I just want to quickly mention first and foremost, by the way, this is one of the hardest missions in Miami, Superfly Drive. I've not even mentioned this. So you get a lot of side missions in the game, but this is one of the most efficient missions in the game, and as a result you also get to drive the fastest car in the game, so getting away from police should be relatively straightforward. And we're going to take the safe strat, but the main thing above all else for this mission is getting to the end without any police being on your tail. So it's not about how fast you can get there, it's about having no police on your tail. And unfortunately, this mission usually makes or breaks the run, so I will try and play it safe, but I can't promise anything. This is the reason why, if it was consistent, every single time, then I would put the estimate down as 115, 120, probably. But it's not, and this is where the time loss comes from. The other thing is, as well, is this car is extremely fragile. I think it's 4 hits or 5 hits. And, yeah. 4 or 5 hits and this car's done for, so yeah. Now, if there is one, so I can get him, here he is. So what I can do here is, if I'm lucky, which I should hopefully be able to get to the end without a cop. I think I'm gonna. Yes! We got that. Okay. Well, the riskiest mission's done. Very happy about that. I'm very happy about that. That's one of the hardest ones in a run, so I'm glad we got that. But yeah, so because of the driver community and the driver IP itself, it's owned by Ubisoft. The last time Driver got a game, as I said, was probably Speedbot Paradise. The main game was San Francisco, released back in 2011, and hasn't seen a new game since. But the Drive community since 2018 has been working on a project made by a guy called Soapy. And Soapy, along with a bunch of other creators, a bunch of other members of the community, there's probably two men that I can even name, like Mine and Drive, Vortex Story, obviously Soapy himself, and a few others as well, released a game called Driver Syndicate. Now, Driver Syndicate is essentially the game that Ubisoft wouldn't make, or probably wouldn't ever consider making. Now, for some reason, and unbeknownst to me, the Driver Syndicate is one of them games where it has been a case of... It has been a project that the community is, like I said, it's been making since about 2018, I believe, which is great. And yeah, it's pretty nice. So I will just mention, as I said before, the chase missions are main RNG of this game. So D'Angelo is not being very nice today, but with a bit of a hit like that, he definitely should be. And that's him out for the count, which is really good. Very nice. I didn't expect to get him there, so that's pretty good. Not the best chase mission in the world, but hey-ho, we're done with that one. So the next mission, or the final mission in Miami, yes, we're only just moving out of Miami, is called The Informant. So, to bring you up to scratch, back on track with the game here, the story goes that we have to meet a guy called Rufus. Tanner meets Rufus, we meet him. Rufus then says, there's a guy called Jean-Paul, he should be able to give you some information regarding what's going on. Now, unbeknownst to us, Tanner doesn't know this, but Rufus gets shot by a girl that we're introduced to called Jessie, and we have to chase her. Now, surprised. If anything, I'm quite shocked that I've not lost the tram yet, which is a bit of a shame. I'm still not lost it yet. That's quite incredible. That's probably the luckiest tram I've ever had. So just so you know, if you get within a certain distance, when they get out of sight, you've got maybe like, I don't know, like a couple of meters to catch them. And yeah. That was very, very lucky. So, here's the thing. The tram is going to go down that side, and we're going to hug this wall here to stay within distance of the tram. Now, the fun thing is that we can drive at a slow pace. That's fine. Doesn't really matter. Then during the game as well, we have these, like, no kill zones for the cops, where they have to deliberately lose us. There we are. Nice. And that's the informant done and dusted. But yeah, as I was saying, so unbeknownst to us, we meet Rufus. Rufus tells us to bust out Jean-Paul. We do. We bust out Jean-Paul. And Jean-Paul then says, right, okay, I need to help you do me a few jobs. So most notably, I need you to deliver a car, or go and help with a bunch of guys at a warehouse, or, you know, then and later points, like, I need to get you to get this guy surrounded, or you can destroy his car, destroy this other guy's car called the Anjo, which we did. Whilst this is all going on in terms of the story, is Rufus gets shot by this girl called Jessie. Jessie, obviously, we've just captured her because she wasn't the smartest person and smartest tool in the shed, and unfortunately, she got captured by us. So she's now been arrested. Bear in mind, we're an undercover cop, as I said. So a lot of this story is about trying to capture gangs and take down the criminal underworld in America. So, funny thing is, we don't have to be there till the 15-second mark. So I'm just going to drive up to the point here. And we should be fine. Having no cop here is actually a useful thing as well, because it makes this way easier for us as well. Also, welcome to San Francisco, by the way. I didn't even mention that. We're in our next city. So we stay close to this wall here because what we're able to do is the guys are able to get in the car like that. Now here's the fun part. Because of the extra few seconds I mentioned in the Japanese release, what happens is there's something that we do that you can tell there's like a major difference here. So in the PAL and North American release, this red tram right here, if you're fast enough, you can just about get out in front of that red tram. In the Japanese release, they don't have to worry because they have an extra 5 or 10 seconds to wait. So that tram passes no matter what. It always passes, so it's never a problem in the Japanese release. Whereas in PAL and North America, you have to try and get out in front of it to keep... It's just to see you're taking less time and all the rest of it, so it's not too bad. So what we need to do here is we've been speaking to... In terms of the story, by the way, so we've been speaking to this Jessie, and she puts us in contact with someone. She says the guys fled to Frisco, meaning San Francisco. So we've got there, and immediately we're greeted by one of the members of the gang, and he's like, right, okay, I need you to help a bunch of guys with a casino. They're gonna bust in, rob the place, and I need you to be the getaway driver. Most of the missions involve picking up a criminal gang and then getting them from point A to point B. Fun thing is, here's a bit of trivia for you. So, this game released in 1999. Did you know it was based off a film called The Driver, released back in 1978? If you have never seen it, then you'll be incredibly surprised to find out how similar the missions in the game and how similar the plot is of The Driver. In fact, the whole game is based around certain bits. For example, there is a part in that film that involves the main character, I forget what he's called, but the main character that's in it, supposedly he's just known as The Driver, is he has to do all of the tricks in what you do in that, you know, in the opening mission, the car park thing, you have to do the slalom and everything like that. That is all based off that one scene from the film. Here's another fun piece of trivia. That same film also provides some of the sound effects for this game. Some of the sound effects you hear of when I crash are actually ripped from the film and put into the game. So it's not just inspired by it, it takes bits of it as well, sounds from the game. I would highly recommend watching it. If you've never seen The Driver, released in 1978, it's an old film, but you can track it down. Would highly recommend watching it. There is also a few other films that are very similar to The Driver concept in film form. One of which is called Drive, which released in 2011, I think it was. And it starred Ryan Gosling. I think it's 2011 or 2013. But it starred Ryan Gosling, and would highly recommend watching it. It's a good film. Not as good as The Driver in 1978, but it's a good film. Would recommend watching it. So, this mission involves us getting to Fisherman's Wharf here, which, as you can see, we're already here. And we're going to turn the car around here deliberately because we need to be going the other direction. The other thing is, as well, is this has a great line in it, which is when you play the mission in the what's it called? In the answering machine, which community seems to like, which is "Come see me down Fisherman's Wharf," and that's literally the only line that I know from that bit. But yeah, that's all good fun. So that's neat. It's the first time I've done this without cops for a while, which is new. I will just say as well, so the police really do make this run come alive, because you can do a run of this with cheats. There isn't a category for it, but I did a run of this with cheats turned on. I think it had like invincibility and immunity turned on. And whilst it doesn't wreck any of the missions at all, it does make a lot of the missions really stupid. Like, I say really stupid, like anything that involves getting from point A to point B, like this mission. The police are what make this run a bit more interesting because they can spawn at any time. And obviously, if you've got invulnerability, then you don't have to worry. The only time you do have to worry is if the cars flip on the side or flip upside down, you're screwed. And you have maybe about 5 to 6 seconds, I'd say, before the car officially gets classed as wrecked. Fun fact, in San Francisco, around here, so down that little alleyway there, you may have seen that you can look into the void. If you drive down there, you can actually go out of bounds, but you can't do anything out of bounds, which is a shame, really, because it would have been nice to be able to speed some of these missions up. Speaking of glitches and out of bounds, you'll see some, most notably in Los Angeles and New York. They're not that common, but they are there. There we go. And that is Guns in the Trunk done and dusted. And that was a very clean Guns in the Trunk. I'm quite happy with that one. Now, the next mission that is coming up is one that's called Taxi. Taxi is a very fun mission, very fast, very quick. And basically, the way that the story goes now is that along the lines of this one is there is an informant and you need to scare the hell out of him to get information. And that's what you do in the mission Taxi. And it is a very funny mission. It's very fun. And you'll see why. Even better than that, so in the take a ride mode that everyone is used to, you get put in a default car. In the PC version, you can pick what car you want to use. In certain missions in the PC version, you can also pick cars. In this version, you get put in select cars, and you can't change car. And it includes driving some bizarre cars, including taxis and, funnily enough, including police cars too. There you go, like that. That's what I mean by a short mission. You can scare the living Jesus out of him, and there you go. So, now that we've scared him, and scared the living daylights out of him, the next mission is called Cozy to the Chopper, or Cozy to the Chopper. You look at this and you tell me how you think you should say it. I think it's Cozy to the Chopper. You pick him up and you have to get into a chopper, obviously, as the name of the mission would suggest. Now, the problem with this mission, it's not a hard mission, but it has ruined runs in the past. The main problem I have with it is it's in wet weather. Any mission that involves driving in the rain, particularly at night, I might add, which it kind of is, it's in the afternoon, is that the frame rate tanks a lot. So we're often driving basically sideways. We're not even driving straight. So that's all good fun. All Gucci. So as you can see here, the frame rate has took a bit of a nosedive. And we want to make sure we come from this side, so we can literally just walk straight out into the car, and there you go. And there we go. As I said, the Japanese version, for those that don't know, does give you, as I said earlier on, does give you a lot more information. Same information, it gives you a lot more time. So, anyone that's looking at playing this, yeah, would highly recommend getting started with the Japanese release. And as well, it lets you skip the intro car park mission thing. You know that bit that everyone got stuck on? Yeah, you can skip that by just wrecking the car. Now, I haven't really mentioned too much about the other versions. By that, you're like, well, you mentioned the 3 regions, right? Yes, I have. But there was, as I said, there was an iOS version, which we've only recently got working. I say recently, the community managed to get, I think it was one of the emulators, touch screens, it's like Touch HLE or something, to get working for the iOS release. So that might be on my to-do list soon enough. But the other thing is as well is that there is a Game Boy Color version. So for all those retro enthusiasts and those that like playing handheld games, yeah, you can play Driver, You Are the Wheelman. Believe it or not, the game's beatable in about 35 minutes. I think the record's like 31 a bit minutes. I think my best time was 35 minutes, but either way, it is a difficult game to play. But here's the fun bit. Driver on the Game Boy Color is very similar to what the early Grand Theft Auto games were, because it's a top-down driver game, which is pretty neat for those that like the top-down approaches of games. Driver 2 got a Game Boy Advance release named Driver 2 Advance, and Driver 3 even got a GBA release. I know, how bizarre is that? Also, I've got free time now, so I can literally just chill whilst he's walking to the chopper, which is neat. But to just quickly explain, as I said, there is a PC version as well, so nice physics. Yeah, there is a PC version of the game which has much faster load times, but the route is different because the PC version doesn't allow for certain glitches and things like that. So there you go. I also see that we have someone in chat asking about why I look to the sides. I'll just quickly explain again, as I don't mind explaining this. This probably will confuse the hell out of everybody. The reason why we play in first-person mode, so that's where the camera's on the floor and we don't look at the car, apart from at the start of the missions, is because of the fact that we are trying to render as least amount as possible. The reason why we look to the side is also to do the same effect. The whole point of the PS1 version, unlike the PC version, is it has frame rate issues quite badly, I might add. So there'll be a lot of times where we're doing this, where we're just driving sideways. Now, obviously, I will need to look forwards just to see if there's any traffic coming my way. But yeah, that's the main reason. The other reason, too, is the fact that if you're looking at a wall, it's behind the wall is the void. And there's nothing there. As a result, the game runs at a full solid 30 FPS, or if you're on PAL, a solid 25, but I wouldn't recommend it. As I said, the Japanese release is the reason why we're playing it is because we get more time than the other two versions. So for Superfly Drive, by the way, that is probably the best example I can give. So in Superfly Drive, we have 2 minutes 40 seconds, I think, to do the mission. In the North American release, you get 2 minutes 43 seconds. In the Japanese release, you get 2 minutes 50. Now, you might get 10 seconds more in the Japanese than you do in PAL, but my god, that comes in useful. The mission's hard on time as it is, but in the Japanese release, it basically gives you more of a good shot of getting to the end, no matter what. So that's fun. But yeah, that's kind of the end of that. And then, yeah, that's basically it. Also, just whilst I'm quickly thinking about it, this mission is called the Mercy Mission. Now, here's a fun one. The Mercy Mission is quite fun because the Mercy Mission has a bit of trivia to it. In the PS1 version of the game, there is 3 parts. This is part 2, we've got a part 3. In the PC version, there's 4. Now, originally in the PS1 version, thanks to the cutting room floor, by the way, for this isn't my knowledge, this is theirs, is that the PS1 version was originally supposed to have 4 parts, but it never got there. But the 4th part is actually in the game's coding, it just needs to be activated via Game Shark and game cheats, whatever it was, Game Breaker cheats. You can usually do this on an emulator. I think it's a bit more difficult to do it on a PS1, but you can do it on emulator relatively easy. Now, in all 3 versions of the game, the code is there. I believe it's the easiest way to access it is through the North American release. So, how do we know that that is a thing? Well, it's quite obvious in the game. So, in the first 2 parts, you have 2 cutscenes. In the 3rd part, on PC version, the cutscene is different to what is played in the PS1 version. So, at the end of this part, which is now, we're on to part 3 of the Mercy Mission here. It doesn't say part 3, but it is the 3rd part. When we get to the end, we will be played a cutscene that is not actually supposed to be played. We'll be playing the end of the mission cutscene instead of the end of part 3. Whereas on PC, you have you get this point, you get to the end, a cutscene plays, but it's a different cutscene, and then you've got to get to where the 4th bit is. So, for those that don't know, after part 3, you're originally supposed to drive even more north and get to the park, which is where the 4th part ends up, and that's where the final cutscene for the mission ends. Like I said, the PS1 version doesn't allow for that part to be played unless you use Game Shark, Game Breaker cheats. Unfortunately, there's no context as to what you're supposed to do, but the whole entire Mercy Mission doesn't have anything as to where you're supposed to go. That's the thing, there actually are a few missions that, should you skip cutscenes, like I used to do a hell of a lot, and the only reason I know about the story is because I actually had to sit and watch them all, is the fact that I used to play the Mercy Mission and wonder what the hell I was supposed to do. Why was I randomly going to 3 random locations for no reason? I had no idea that the Mercy Mission is about a kidnapper demanding a ransom, and you're the one that's driving to and from. There we go. And also, at the end of this part, it doesn't matter if the cops are chasing you, because it just doesn't matter. They're all good. So that's the end of the Mercy mission, and that's the cutscene for the end of part 4, which isn't supposed to be there. So there's your trivia, I guess, or your misinformation. I don't know what you call it. But yeah. Next mission on the lineup for San Francisco is called The Setup. This is relatively straightforward. It is point A to B and back to A again. So the setup is a guy rings you and says, look, I've got a job. I need you to come pick the guys up. We're located at this garage. To which you agree. You go, yeah, sure, why not? Only to find out when you get there that, like the name of the thing implies, that it's a setup. So you have to bomb it back to your hotel. Or motel, I think it is in this case. So, all good fun. Also, I will just say as well, so the physics for the game, in case it wasn't obvious, by the way, so the way that the car handles is a completely different way around it. So you've got to remember, these cars were based off cars in the 1970s. So a lot of the handling style of these cars is weight more than anything else. And as a result, it means that we can let the car slide and things like that. It also means that when the car jumps and lands, it bounces, because suspension back in them days wasn't that good either, as any Willys Jeep will probably attest to. But yeah, so here's the garage, car park, whatever you want to call it. Fun fact, so this is actually in free row, and weirdly enough, in survival mode, this is actually a death-free zone, if I can call it that. So basically, you're able to lose the police quite easily in this like little car park, and somebody actually managed to do a run of survival mode on San Francisco. So survival is like all the cops are turned up to 11 or more, and they're able to do their own thing. And yeah, surviving that is absolutely horrific. I'll just say that much. It is really difficult, like really difficult. Unless you know where to go and you can just cheese it on the timer. Yeah, what someone actually managed to do is they managed to get to that car park and they were able to lose the police in survival mode. So that's like the main key area to losing police. For some reason, I don't know why, it's like the police get scared to go in the car park for some odd reason. So in this particular mission, what we want to be doing is I can literally look from one side to the other here, and I should hopefully be able to get out of sight. If I can get out of the way, I can, like that, yeah. Then we're fine. Nice, there we go. The seconds in game are longer than a second, yet, because the seconds are tied to frame rate. That's the fun part. Also, just to kind of bring you a bit more up to scratch with the story here, so there's a guy within a gang that you start working for, and he's called Slater. Now we need to take him down because we want to arrest him. It turns out he's also the same guy that supposedly just set you up. So yeah, time to take Slater down, take him out of the story, and to make sure that we can progress with the story. Here's the fun thing. So you have a partner that's called Jones. Now, what Jones does is he provides information for you. There we go. And the information he provides is, hey, I found out where the gang's going next. And he goes, right, where's the gang going? Turns out the gang is going to Los Angeles. Now, here's where the glitching and the fun begins. So, in Glitchless, you do a few different missions. In the regular any percent, as you'll see, we're going to be doing certain missions for certain reasons. Now, there are only 4 missions that we have to do in Los Angeles. The first of which is called Steal a Cop Car. Then we have a chase with someone called Duval, who turns out is also a rat within the gang that we're working for. We need to take him down and get him arrested. We then have the Maddox hit, which is involving a bunch of guys trying to kill a guy at a Chinese restaurant. And turns out that the guy that they're trying to kill is one of your own colleagues. So that's all good fun. And then finally we have Beverly Hills Getaway, and that is LA done and dusted. Now here's a fun one. The steal a cop car mission we're doing involves two things. Firstly, we get to drive a cop car for the first time in the run, which is really cool. Second thing, we have to make sure that we don't damage this car too much because it is fragile. Now, here's where the fun part begins. So now, if we let the car sink, we pass the mission, just like that. Yes, not even joking, this is how we're actually able to make this run way faster. Somebody found that the sea, or that particular part, has a glitchy barrier, and that the car is able to sink into the sea, and you're able to pass the mission like that. Now this actually works on 2 occasions, which is what we're going to use them for. The Maddox, you can use that same glitch in that mission if you wish to do so, but it takes longer, and it's better to just do the mission legit. So this is the chase. We've got to chase Duval. Hopefully he plays nice with me. If he doesn't, then I could be in trouble. But again, we'll find out. I'm not sure if he's going to go left. Yes, he is. And he did. Nice. And also to speed the frame rate, I'm going to just make sure I'm facing the wall here. There we go. I'm actually glad that mission went really well. Same with Tanner and Slater, to be honest. That was quite impressive. So now we have to wait a little bit. So for some reason, the Maddox mission, it has a cutscene that takes way longer than anything else to load. On emulator, it takes about an extra 5 or 10 seconds to load for some reason. Whereas on console, you can get it pretty quickly, because I think it depends on how fast it reads off a disc. So I'm not really sure. So the Maddox takes a huge chunk of time in Los Angeles. It's a 6.5 minute behemoth. And that's like if you get a really good run. So the Maddox involves us driving to a car park, picking up a bunch of hitmen, and then taking them to a Chinese restaurant. Once they get to the Chinese restaurant, they then perform a hit. It misses, thankfully, because like I said, it's your colleague. And I presume what Tanner has done, or what Tanner does do, is that he informs the guy that he's on the hit list and to take any precautions necessary if he gets shot or attempts to get shot, like move swiftly or something like that, when he's supposedly going to get shot. So in this particular part, as I said, the weather plays a huge part. So we'll often be looking to the side here. And as I was saying too earlier on, is that we have these points where there is like a no-kill zone, which is if we stay on this path, the AI can't hurt us. The only way they can hurt us is if they cross in front of us. So I can stay on this line here, and should be fine in that cop. Yeah, I am. I'm fine. And I can literally stay here, and I won't get hit. That's probably going to be me sealing my fate here, and there probably will be a car that'll just swerve over. So it makes the missions a real breeze as well, and also stops you from getting any damage, which is useful. Few things regarding the damage bar and the criminal bar. So your damage stacks up over the course of the mission. So if you wreck the car badly in the first 2 parts of the mission, you'll not give yourself enough breathing space for the last mission. Whereas if you... they also glitch through that wall for some reason, the AI. But it stacks up, essentially. And also the other thing is, as well, is the felony does the same thing too. So the felony will also stack up. Sometimes it resets, but usually stacks up. So we ideally don't want to get too much felony, or criminal as it's known. And for those wondering as well how that all works, the more criminal or the more felony you rack up, the stronger the cops are against you. So obviously the police will start putting up roadblocks, they'll start sending 2 cops after you at a time instead of 1, like that. They already are doing. And your felony can go up for a variety of reasons. It can go up through hitting lampposts, it can go up through hitting other cars, it can go up through hitting the scenery, so hitting trees. That guy was in my way, so he got shoved aside. And yeah, if you do it all in the view of a cop, then obviously the felony goes up. If you do it out of view of a cop, sometimes the felony doesn't go up, so you can get away with stuff. So I can hit a car miles away from a cop, and it won't go up. But if he's close enough to me and he sees me hit a car, then obviously I'm in trouble. And yeah, the other thing is as well is you can also run over pedestrians. Don't worry, you can't actually run them over. They're protected by God or some invisible force field from your car, which is actually a fun thing that the Driver series does. It doesn't let you run over a person at all. In Driver 3 and Parallel Lines, because they were GTA clones, of course you could knock people over, and you could knock people over and you could kill people with guns and stuff, but that's because they were GTA clones. Whereas in Driver 1, Driver 2 and San Francisco, all of them are essentially they're not able to be run over. They get shifted aside like nothing happens. Also there we go. And they tried shooting him, it's failed, and now what's happened is somebody's called the police, and now the police are on our tail. We need to get to the hideout. So this is the second part of the mission. Also, hey, look at that, we're 50 minutes in. So it depends on how New York goes. That's the main concern. New York is the main one. New York has a lot of difficult missions. It's the final city that we go to in the game. And yeah, that can be where time is easily made, like can be make or break, basically. So make or break time. So there'll be a lot of slowdown in this. There's not a lot I can do other than look to the sides to try and get rid of it as best as I can, but obviously I need to be making sure that I don't hit much traffic or hit any traffic cars that come out the sides of these. You'll probably hear police sirens as well. Apparently they couldn't think of anything good for an alarm for a building, so they went with the police siren. So you'll hear it several times during this. I can only apologise. Also, this is about where the frame rate gets really good and really bad at the same time. So if I look to the side here, the frame rate is really, really good. But then if I don't, there we are. And also the cops aren't the smartest at all. First time I've actually seen... Oh, damn. Okay, we got 2 cops. That's fun. This will be an interesting one. I've not had 2 cops follow me down here for a while. This would definitely be a first. I think we might lose them both, actually. I'll lose them both. Okay, we're not going to lose them both. That's a shame. I thought I would lose them. The problem is that if the cops follow you this far back, then getting rid of them can be a slight pain. There we are. So that gets rid of the Maddox hit. And we move on to the final mission in Los Angeles, which is Beverly Hills Getaway. The reason why this is the shortest mission, it used to be the test run, but the test run takes 3.5-ish minutes to get from one side to the other. But we found that this mission's a lot faster because of the out of bounds glitch. So there's actually a much safer route that we're going to be using as well for the glitch. So the idea for the out of bounds in this one is you're supposed to go towards that corner, the bit where I showed you before, the out of bounds, and you're supposed to hit it and get put into the sea. For me, that can be risky because the car can sometimes hit that, lose all momentum, and start flipping and just flip upside down and not actually sink in time. Whereas now there is a much safer option. So first and foremost, we've got to get to Beverly Hills, and we've got to go and pick the guys up. Well, specifically go and pick the criminals up and make it nice and easy, just like that. Easy enough. Nice. Very nice. Ooh. So what I need to do here is, so this is actually a different timer. So normally you have to wait, for most times you have to wait till 15 seconds. on this one, you have to wait till it hits 10 for some reason. So we just got to wait to make sure I'm heading the right way as well. There we go. Okay, so we need to get them to the ending of this mission. But we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. What we're going to do is... Here's the catch. If you do this mission legit, if you do it normally, the place it is telling you to go right now is actually a red herring. Because if you go there, there's police everywhere and it says it's an ambush. Get us the hell out of here. To which point, you then need to get them to another destination. Whereas now you can sink the car and you'll finish the mission. So here's where playing the safe strat comes in for the out of bounds. So, there's a building on my right. It should appear in a second. It's a big gold building. There it is. Right next to it is a building. This building doesn't have any collision detection, and as such goes into the void. And there we go. And we're out of bounds. Now we're going to use this to drive all the way to the water at the other end. And also the frame rate improves a hell of a ton here. So that's neat. There we go. And there we go. And we're done with that mission. And we can easily sink the car in that one, which is really good. So that's a fun one. So that's Los Angeles finished. We're now on to New York, the final city in the game. First things first, we're going to pick Grand Central Station Switch, which is going to be followed by the accident. Now, depending on the missions you pick here will depend on the ending mission you get and what ending you're going to get. Believe it or not, it starts here. So if we do Grand Central Station Switch and the accident, we get a mission where Tanner gets out alive at the end of it all. If we do Luther Seeper Junk and a mission called The Rescue, which is about a 6.5 minute behemoth, then what happens is it'll take a fair bit longer for a start. But here's the thing. Luther Seeper Junk takes about 2.5 minutes. The Rescue takes about 6 minutes, maybe a bit more. This takes, I think it's about 5.5 minutes to do this mission. The accident can take anywhere from 30 seconds to about a minute or so. So you're immediately saving time by doing this mission. And one thing I will start with right off the bat is how much I hate New York in this game. So New York has the worst traffic of all, taxis. They pull out of junctions randomly, they don't stop, and when they do, it's like, move the hell over because you never know what might happen. So there's going to be a cop here. Yes, he's going the right way. That is fantastic spawn, wow. Okay, I'm very lucky today. That works for me. Nice. So that's the first part done. That's the crucial bit. The second part doesn't really matter if I get a cocktail, and the third part doesn't either. The third part involves mainly having to think about destroying cars at the end of the mission. So it shouldn't be too bad, but we'll see. But yeah, nice and easy, relatively straightforward. Yes, so we've now got to we've met our contact. We've now got to get to Grand Central. And then what we've got to do is make the exchange afterwards. So the fun thing is about at the end of this game as well, when you finish this game, there is a credit sequence. Inside the credit sequence is a bonus map. Now, I'll just mention, the soundtrack you can hear right now is actually for the bonus map. The bonus map is Newcastle. Newcastle, yep, the UK city, was where Reflections was based at the time. And as such, it was like, you know what, let's make like a little mini version of Newcastle. So they did. And as a result, it's viewable in the credits for this game. If you play the PS1 version, unfortunately, the only way of accessing Newcastle as a playable city is via Game Shark cheats, as I said before, Game Shark codes, that sort of thing. But if you play the PC version, you can actually drive around Newcastle as free as you wish. So the city is not very big, and yeah, it's actually playable. So that's Grand Central done. We've now got to make the exchange, and we're going to do that again by the power of a cutscene. And there you go. And we made the exchange. So now we've got to get back to our original client to get, I think it's money that we need to get. Now, this trip on the way back is actually worse than the one to get to Grand Central because we're now going to have infinite spawning black cars coming at us. Presumably, this is the FBI or gang cars. I'm not exactly sure which one it's supposed to be. I think it's gang cars or thug cars, whatever you want to call them. So we'll see. So we're going to get past a certain point here, and in a minute now you'll see that we're going to start being tailed. And this is when it gets turned up to 11. So now these black cars are going to start coming at us. As soon as we lose them, they'll start spawning in front. It is possible to lose them. If you do lose them though, prepare to have cop spawns going mental. Now these have police spawns, but these aren't the police. That, like I said, they're gangster ones. So these have an infinite tolerance to spawning all the time. As I said, taxis can be your worst nightmare, your best friend. I know I've had a few lucky moments because of taxis, so that's all good. And sometimes, in the case of that, get rid of him, hopefully. So if I can make this, I might be able to get rid of him. Can I get rid of him? Taxi, save me. The taxi. Oh, taxis, please save me. Actually, several taxis save me. I think they actually did. Now, the taxis didn't quite save me. I can't see him. He's there somewhere. I need to make sure he comes after me here. There we go. There we go. Okay, we've done it. Also, the frame rate, that was atrocious. Holy hell. Right, so that's Grand Central Station switched on. Now we move on to a chase mission. Now, this is only one of two chase missions, and both are just horrendous as each other. So, in chase missions, I've not even mentioned this, all the vehicles that you chase all have infinite mass. So, if you smash one head on, you're going to go flying back the other way. Would not recommend it. So, you have to grind them down. Now, this is something that they took into consideration with the Driver 2 damage model. So in Driver 2, you have to rub the cars, but you can't grind the health down instantly. In Driver 1, you can just grind the health down. Driver 2 involves like holding in front of them or just like slowly being able to touch the side of them. So we're back in police car here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take down this person. I have no idea who it is. But there you go. And we have done. Just like that. Nice. Okay, that chase mission went well. I'm glad that went well. So that gets rid of them. So supposedly that was also another person that was a rat or a mole within the organization. And this is actually the last time now that we're actually going to pick a mission in this game. So there are a fair few horrible missions in Driver. I mentioned how there is... So there's Superfly Drive in Miami. In San Francisco, there is two. There is In the Pickup, which involves a pickup truck and a explosive crate in the back, and you've got to get from one part to the other without blowing it up. And then the other one being, I think after that, is the briefcase as well. The briefcase comes before that, so you've got the briefcase and that one. There's not as far as I know, there's not that many horrible missions in Los Angeles as far as I'm aware, but New York has, I think, 2 or 3 of them. The rescue, as I mentioned earlier, is an alternate timeline one, and it is a horrendous mission. You also have Take a Cab, which involves going from one side of the map to the other. The cab is very fragile, and you have to have no police tail when you get to the other end. So yeah, it is a horrendous mission. So what we've got to do here is we find out that there's someone called Granger. Granger has been a naughty boy, and as such we have to wreck his car like so, if I can do it. Be nice. There we go. And as a result, there's all police surrounding his car because he's also part of the criminal underworld. He's part of this gang, which I haven't really mentioned much, by the way. So that we end up getting cast into a gang by a man called Castaldi. Castaldi involves us, gets us doing missions for him, including taking a guy called Granger to get him to be jailed by the cops. Obviously, you're forgetting the fact that he's a cop himself. You know, Tanner's a cop himself, but they don't know that. They think he's just coming to wreck Granger's car. Obviously, Granger is a criminal. He's not an informer or anything. So once we've done that and got that mission out of the way, which we have now, which is good because we got a good cop spawn, we now move on to another horrible mission in New York, which is called the Negatives. Now, the Negatives, apart from me saying it's a horrible mission, but is that we have to take down a bunch of guys that are, again, gang related. I don't really know what their intentions are, but the mission basically tells us to take them down, and that's what we're going to do. Now, the problem with this mission is that it's dark, it's wet, and taking these guys down is not easy, so... Especially if you get a bad cycle. If you get a good cycle, then it's fine. There we go. And we actually got him first try. I'm impressed. We got him. That was quite good. Very good. Very nice. Okay. So now my thoughts have gone regarding that mission. So I'm glad that went well. So as I was saying, depending on the missions that you choose at the start will depend on this second to last mission. If you picked Luther's Heap of Junk and did the rescue, this mission is now the alley situation and you save a girl called Alley. The fun fact in the PC version of the run, you have to do that route, and in the alley situation, you deliberately wreck the car so you don't save her and you're able to skip the mission. If you do it the other way around, though, you do a mission called Rite of Passage. Now, Rite of Passage is about a 3.5 minute behemoth, I'd want to say, of a run. It is a pretty large run, and it basically involves... Castaldi says, right, we've got this route planned out for our master plan in New York, and we need you to test if you can get from one side to the other. I want to see how good your driving skills are. So that's what this mission is about. You play this mission, you wouldn't even think that that's what you have to do, but that's the context behind this mission. So again, it's wet, it's dark, it's not great. So unfortunately, we'll be spending a lot of time in cockpit view and looking to the side. As I said, it's a very bland mission to finish the run nearly. The finale mission though is quite a bit of fun. So for those that may or may not know the finale, the end of Driver 1 involves a mission called the President's Run. It is a horrendous mission, would be to call it an understatement. It was so bad it took me 10 years to beat the damn thing. So, and it's still to this day one of my key horrors of my childhood, along with a few other things as well. So, yeah, it was just one of the most hellish missions I've ever come across. I played some horrible missions in games, and you know, I played some racing games that are not great, but goddamn was it one of the most horrendous ones. God knows how many times I got my hair off at the President's Run and was like, why can't I beat this mission and everything like that. Now bear in mind, if you play it casually, that mission can be difficult. There are certain ways that you can get around it, including but not limited to driving through the park and stuff like that to give yourself a big gap, because you can go flying through the park and the police just back off for some reason. Yeah, not too bad. As I was saying though, this mission in particular does involve going from one side of the map to the other, so it is a fair long drive, to be honest. One other thing as well is I had this mission is very significant for me because I had a run that was on console on 111 pace, and for those that don't know, so the record for emulator is a 109.11 set by myself. Console is slower by a lot because it has worse frame rate issues. I had a pace of 111 something, I think it was. And I got to this mission, I was like, okay, we finished this, and then it's only the President's Run that can probably potentially stuff me up. What ends up happening though is I get right to the last corner and there's a taxi there. I hit the taxi, I bounce off him, and then I hit another and another. Then the car starts to tip over, and it does. When that happens, as I said earlier, the car tips over, there's no pulling it back. It's not like GTA 5 physics where you can miraculously flip the car over onto its wheels. No. If the car goes over, that's it, you've had it. You're done for, basically. And yeah, I lost the 111 run, and to this day I've still not got anywhere close to that run. Had that not happened, I don't think I ever would have to have beaten to beat the 111. 112 hasn't even happened on PS1 yet, let alone 111. So yeah, it will happen one day, I'm sure. So this is the part I was on about. It's at the top of this hill, and with it being so far ahead now, what I tend to do is I just think, you know what, I'm not even going to risk it anymore. I'm actually going to put the brakes on rather than trying to bounce off cars and stuff like that. So that's the end of Rite of Passage, and that leaves us with one mission to go, which is the President's Run. So the story, I haven't really mentioned it much, but here you go. Granger was part of our gang, we took him down. Then we had a bunch of criminals that we also had to take down. Rite of Passage was a test to see if we get across town. The plan was to kill the President of the United States. That was the big task. That was the big assignment. You're assigned as the driver to drive him into a blind spot and to get him the hell out of there. This is what happens now. So we have now got to get the President out of here. So all these taxis are now from Castaldi's gang. They're to deliberately block us and to make sure we don't do anything wrong. What we do now is we do this. There we go. We get pushed out of bounds like that. And again, this is the hardest mission in the game, made so much easier. So you get pushed out of bounds like this, and then we just sink the car and we win. And that's it. Also get ready because time's going to be coming up pretty sharpish, just so you know. I'll let you know when time is. And time. And there we go. 1:11:15, not bad. Pretty good for a marathon run, actually. That's pretty good. And there we go. And that's it. And that's your end. So, this is all in Japanese, but to put a long story short, you save the president, funnily enough by drowning him, but you do save the president. He's basically asking, are you alright? He's like, yeah, I'm fine. The police obviously chase you all the way to the end, which is where we now are. And that's Mackenzie, Captain Mackenzie, saying, what the hell do you think you're doing, Tanner? Take your badge back. And in which what he doesn't. And that's basically it. Now, I would play the entire ending cutscene, but I do believe we are behind on time. We do have another cutscene as well, which shows that Tanner did get out alive, and I'm going to speed things up a little bit here. But that is Driver. Once you beat the game, by the way, you do get cheats. So you get invincibility, immunity, so no damage, no police if you use an immunity. Rear wheel is basically the steering goes from the front wheels to the back, so it makes it very interesting. Minis shrinks the car to about that big on screen. Stilts puts your car on stilts. Anti-podium makes you drive upside down. So, or in Australian terms, Australian. But yeah, so there's that. And obviously you got the credits as well, which, like I said, they are essentially for speed up. There you go. So this is the Newcastle bit I was on about, being like it is. So this is like the official credits. Why this doesn't show when you finish the game, I don't know. But here you go. So Martin Edmondson, main guy who came up with Driver, was fantastic. And like I said, you can hear the soundtrack and everything like that as well. The fun thing is because they based it in Newcastle that they were able to put in British cars instead of American style cars. So all the cars that are driving about, more or less, are the Jaguar XJ6 from 1995 or 96, I want to say. Obviously, you've got to have it in British Racing Green, because of course you have. They have like the time bridge and everything for Newcastle. It's only a very small size, like it's maybe a quarter of the size of Miami. in terms of the map size. Obviously, see they modelled the damage for the cars as well. So, and also they were supposed to be police in this as well. Would have liked to see a full-size model version, but again, they did this because of the fact that the offices were based in Newcastle. That's why they did it. Supposedly there was more in development, but they never made it that far. I'm pretty sure someone could probably mod the whole thing in. But then again, if there was no original design, then obviously you can't really model it in, and someone have to think of their own incentive to do it. As I said, just going to quickly mention two last things. Firstly, thank you to Pixelperfect for having me. Thankfully, I've managed to pull off a good run. That was good. Second thing, I was to mention out to my own community, but also the drive community as well. We recently had a driver marathon last weekend ourselves, showing off some of the driver runs, including this one, which was really great to see. The driver community isn't that big speedrunning wise, but the Driver Madness Discord, which is the regular driving community, you can find that over on the Driver Madness website, I believe. I would highly recommend checking it out if you're a bit of a driver nut and you want to learn more about insights, you want to talk with other people regarding driver, and you want to talk about other things as well. As I said, be sure to check out Redriver 2, which is the Driver 2 PC, unofficial PC port, which is now supposedly going to class as the official PC release. It's actually Driver 2, but it's playable. And people have modded it as well, which is even better. So it's like Driver 2 if it could be modded, if it could run at 30 FPS cleanly, and a lot of other stuff as well. Check out the Open Driver game, which is basically a game. It's like a beta game, but it allows you to put driver assets into a world, driver world, and do whatever you want and go nuts with it. And then finally, last but not least, be sure to check out a game called The Driver Syndicate, which is a community-based project based off an entirely different engine, and a brand new engine, I believe it is. And fun fact, there's even Driver 1 Miami, all the missions from Miami, and a neat little mod called Classic Syndicate, which involves like all the cars and stuff like that, and it is great fun. Would highly recommend checking it all out. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to hand it back over to the host. But once again, thank you very much, Pixelperfect, for having me. And yeah, hope you enjoy the rest of the event.
Viper, thank you so much for being on and on showcasing Driver for us. Absolutely fantastic run, and well done on coming in massively underestimate, which really helps us out. Very much appreciated. All right, we are going to go to a quick intermission. And then when we're back, a very different shift in gear. We're going over to our mini Sonic block with Sonic the Hedgehog's Game World. We'll see you all in a couple of minutes.